And a good Friday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. You can take the show with you on demand on your own time by checking out the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our show this morning is brought to you in part by Melissa Gott and the amazing team over at the Law Group in Wilmington. Reach out to them online at lawgroupnc.com or give them a call, 910-251-6088. We'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on in the program this morning. All right, so a couple of things to get into. Redistricting, of course, continues to be a major topic of discussion across the United States, and we're going to get into what I described as Indiana's and their Republican Party's unwillingness, their refusal to fight. We've got a lot to get into on this. This has been a as you would imagine and expect, a pretty polarizing political issue across both sides of the political aisle. You've got Republicans that think some of these redistricting calls are a terrible idea. Of course, the vast majority of Democrats think it's terrible because, you know, it's always quite funny and quite ironic, right? When Democrats in state legislatures redraw maps, it's called redistricting. When Republican legislatures redraw maps, it's called gerrymandering. You see the difference? You see the distinction in those two different comments? The ways that it's described? It's good when Democrats draw maps. It's just redistricting, which is like literally the name of it. But when Republicans do it, they're gerrymandering. We're gerrymandering. I'll note that political gerrymandering is not illegal. The nation's highest court has just ruled in the last couple of years that they are no longer going to take up cases of what is described as political gerrymandering, meaning the party in charge, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, whoever's drawing said map, if they draw it for political reasons, as was the case here in the state of North Carolina, that they're not going to take up those issues. They have made the point, and I think rightfully so, that this is a political question, not a legal question. And there's a lot to kind of break down with this. I had the opportunity actually this week here in Wilmington. The local chapter of the Federalist Society hosted a speaker, Mitch Kokai from the John Locke Foundation. If you're somebody that listens to me on the Carolina Journal News Hour, you're very familiar with Mitch and familiar with his work. He was down here in Wilmington and spoke on kind of the history of redistricting in North Carolina. You know, prior to 2010, it was an exclusively Democrat-controlled thing. Maps and the state legislature had been unanimously controlled by Democrats for the better part of 120 some odd years prior to 2010. So there's a long history of redistricting, a long history of legal challenges, a long history of fights over political maps in the state of North Carolina and in many other states across the nation as well. And so we'll get to the crux of the argument over whether this is a quote-unquote good idea or a bad idea. We'll get into all that, but I want to start off with something I included in my morning line email. If you're not subscribed to that, I'd encourage you to do so. It's a free email. It'll come into your inbox weekday mornings at right around 6:30 or so. That gets sent out. And I always include what I call my morning take. And my take this morning was about President Donald Trump. And I get asked from time to time, typically from people on the left, sometimes people on the right, about Trump and, you know, what is the best thing? What is the greatest thing about Trump? And I would kind of take a different approach than a lot of other people. And the approach I always take, and I included that this morning in the email, is that Donald Trump gives Republicans courage. Donald Trump gives Republicans the stability, gives them the courage that they need to make strong, decisive decisions. And when you look at some of the growing frustration and growing concern that has existed in the GOP for some time now, I think a lot of that frustration, and I'll speak personally for myself, a lot of that frustration is that when Republicans are in charge, frankly, they don't have the balls to do anything. They don't. because they're afraid of what the Democrats might say. They're afraid with what the media might say, which of course is just one and the same. I mean, it's the exact same group. One's just happen to be on TV or writing articles online. The other ones just, are in government. It's the exact same group of individuals. So they're afraid about what the media and what Democrats might say. So they sit there like lame ducks. And that has been a growing problem. And when a lot of folks and many more establishment Republicans begin to kind of scratch their head and say, when many of them are still frustrated with the fact that Donald Trump has now been the de facto leader of the Republican Party for the better part of like 11 years at this point. He's been, controlling the GOP, the messaging runs through the president. He's got a hold on the party. The more grassroots MAGA Trumpian part of the party found themselves very frustrated with politicians that talked a big game, made a lot of comments and made a lot of promises to people. But when the rubber would meet the road, when it was time to, crack your fingers and get working on it, we were afraid. We don't want to piss off the media. We don't want them to say mean things about us. So because we're afraid of mean things being said, we will capitulate. We will bend over and just completely give in to whatever the Democrats want. And it's why one of the words that you've heard me say before, I describe it as the C word in politics, is compromise. Whenever, and it's still true to some extent, but in the past, when you heard a Republican utter the word compromise, you were screwed. Because we know what these so-called compromises have looked like. Republicans get nothing. Democrats get exactly what they want. That's not a compromise. If you and I are deciding where to go out to dinner, you want to go out for Mexican, I want to go out for Italian, we compromise, we go out and get some bar food, that's a compromise. You wanted one thing, I wanted another, we decided on something else, something maybe a little bit more in the middle. That's what a compromise is. A compromise is not, you want to go out for Mexican, I want to go out for Italian, and we go out for Mexican. That's not a compromise. That's you getting what you want, which is fine, but don't call it a compromise, because it's not. There's no compromise being made. And when you look at some of the frustration that has existed in Republican circles, it's because of things like the word compromise. Even when Republicans are in power, even when Republicans are in charge, we are letting Democrats walk us around like a dog on a leash. And you have a lot of individuals that have said, to hell with this. We're bucking this trend. We're not doing this anymore. When we're the party in charge, we are going to determine our own destiny. We are going to decide what path and what path we're going to walk on. We're doing that. Not them, not the other side. They lost. We won. That's why we're in power. This is not even an issue, right now. This has been a long-standing issue for a lot of folks in the Republican Party. And it's why so many of them, I think, latched on, and I'll throw myself into that basket, why we latched on to Donald Trump so early. He talked about these issues. It appeared blatantly obvious that he was not going to be steamrolled by those on the left because they were going to say mean things about him. They'd said mean things about him for 2 years leading up to the 2016 presidential election. They claimed he was a Russian asset, claimed that he rigged the election with a foreign nation. He doesn't care. And in some elements, we have seen that kind of trickle down to other high-profile Republicans. Look at the government shutdown that we talked extensively about on this program over the last couple of months. The only reason, I say this to you very confidently this morning, the only reason that the government shutdown went down the way that it did, the only reason that it lasted 40 some odd days until Democrats caved and folded is because Donald J. Trump was sitting in the Oval Office. I can say that with absolute certainty to you this morning. You put almost any other Republican in that position, they cave, they fold, even though Republicans have the majority in the House, have the majority in the Senate, have the power in the Oval Office out of the executive branch. They would have caved. Why? Because the mainstream media is blaming us for the shutdown. The mainstream media is saying that we are causing slowdowns at American airports. The mainstream media is saying that people are going hungry and it's our fault. The mainstream media is saying people aren't getting paid and it's our fault. So we've got to compromise. We've got to roll over and give the Democrats whatever they want. That's compromise. At least that's how it's been defined for a pretty significant period of time on the right. Donald Trump doesn't play that game. He has been the, not the first, but probably going back to the Reagan era, has been the only Republican at that prominent, that high of a level to kind of use the media for his advantage. To take advantage of the insanity that exists on, cable news or the nightly newscasts or whatever else form of media you're talking about. He has been incredibly successful in using that to his advantage. He either uses it to his advantage or he ignores it. Both are fine and good strategies. I'm going to be honest with you. And this is, again, something that Trump brings to the Republican Party. I don't care what CNN thinks about my politics. I don't care what NBC or ABC or CBS, I don't care what they have to say about being a conservative. I don't care what they have to say about my Republican ideology. I know that they don't support it. I know that they hate me for what I believe. I know that they hate you for what you believe. So why would I try and get in the good graces of these people? This has always been something that has been incredibly frustrating to me. There is this concept, this notion, this idea that if Republicans give in to those on the left, that they will get praise in Democrat circles, that they will get praise from, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, NPR. I'm here to tell you this morning, not only do you not get that, but it's never going to happen. You're not going to, and I would argue you shouldn't try and win over favor, try and win over for praise from groups of individuals that are completely adverse to everything that you believe. Why? What's the benefit? They're not going to stop. It's not like, Republicans reopen the government, flip the switch. Now all of a sudden CNN is a big carrying the water for Republicans in the Trump administration. No, it's on to the next issue, on to the next thing that we can beat and batter the Republicans over. This is what history shows us. You're never going to win praise. You're never going to be in their good graces. These individuals are ideologically completely divorced from us on the right. They are ideologically on the complete opposite side of the political aisle. And their entire being is their politics. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, with politics being somewhat of a religion for those on the left, which happens to be the vast majority of prominent media outlets throughout the U.S. So if it's their religion, if it's their identity, you really think that's just going to flip on a dime here? I mean, just, Republicans do something good and then the media is just fawning over how great the GOP is. Folks, it's not going to happen. It's not. It's a fool's errand to sit here and believe that if you give the Democrats what you want, you will get in the good graces of American media. It just doesn't happen. There's no track record to back up that it has ever happened, at least in more modern political times. And so I go back to Donald Trump. I believe he has done more work in terms of giving Republicans courage, giving them the ability to say, you know what, to hell with you, to hell with this. We're not going to be backed into a corner. We're not going to be scared by mean headlines at the New York Times. We're not going to be scared with mean opinion pieces over at the Washington Post. We're just not going to. We don't care. You're not controlling our destiny in the media. Voters elected us. They expect us to govern. They expect us to lead, and that's what we're going to do. Donald Trump has done a very, very good job, I think, at breaking this mold that you've got to get in the good graces of Democrats. I mention this to people all the time, especially here in New Hanover County, where we've, of course, got a very purple county, right? And you see Democrats and Republicans elected, unaffiliated as a large group. And in times in the past, I've been asked, from both Republicans and Democrats about getting votes from the other side. And I say, no, it's not a good strategy. Democrats are not going to vote, and this is, of course, broadly speaking, but high percentage-wise. Republicans are not going to vote for Democrats, and Democrats are not going to vote for Republicans. It doesn't matter how much you pander to them. It doesn't matter how many of their talking points that you use. It doesn't matter if you say the right or the good things. At the end of the day, when it is election time and people are heading into a voting location and they see an R next to your name and they're a Democrat, they're not voting for you, and vice versa. It's the reason that you don't see Democrats pandering to Republicans, because they know, they understand that come November, every couple of years, if they've got a D next to their name, Republicans ain't voting for them. It just doesn't happen. It's not a real thing. And so we don't need to curtail our messaging. We don't need to placate those on the political left to try and get good coverage from them. It doesn't freaking matter. It doesn't. So this takes us to where we are this morning in the state of Indiana, where yesterday the Republican-led state Senate in Indiana, which is a Republican majority, voted against a bill to redraw Indiana's congressional maps, in likelihood 9 Republicans, 0 Democrats. There was an overwhelming majority of the Indiana State Senate that voted to kill these maps. The final vote was 31, or the final vote was 19 to 31. 19 in favor, 31 against. Republicans hold a 40-vote majority in the chamber. It's a 50-person body. Republicans have 40 of the votes. And it failed 19 to 31. A miserable failure for the Indiana GOP and the Republican legislature in that state. Before we get into any additional details on this, I want to play a clip from you from Indiana State Majority Leader Chris Garton. He is the, here in North Carolina, you're familiar with somebody like Phil Berger. He is the leader of the North Carolina Senate. This would be his counterpart in the state of Indiana. So we're talking about a high-profile guy, an individual that has got a lot, is very well politically known and has a lot of power in the state. This is what he had to say on the floor of the Indiana Senate before this vote yesterday. Take a listen.
Some will say these maps are political. Let me be clear. You're damn right they are. Political policy is political. Safe streets are political. Look at Indianapolis. Affordable electricity is political. A drug-free Indiana is political. Peace in the Middle East is political. I dealt with it firsthand. If drawing a map that secures 2 more seats for the Republican Party means that we continue to see overdose deaths drop by 20%, then I'll draw that map every single day of the week and twice on Sunday. If drawing a map means that we'll continue to see a 93% drop in illegal immigration, then I'll sign it with a smile on my face. We're not here to be neutral arbiters of decline. We're here to be active agents of American greatness. So I ask you.
And then asked for the vote, and unfortunately, contrary to the words and the strong, very strong commentary there from the Senate Majority Leader and Chris Garton yesterday in Indiana, Republicans caved. They compromised. They refused to fight. That's the title of today's show. They refused to fight. And the Majority Leader pointed out he kind of said, not the quiet part out loud, but he said the part that you don't typically hear out loud. That all of this stuff is inherently political. All of this stuff is very political. Safe streets are political. Peace in the Middle East is political. Immigration policy, it's political. Anybody that tells you otherwise is either A, woefully uninformed with how things work, woefully uninformed, or purposefully lying to and misleading you. Those are the only two options. You either don't fully understand the full scope of everything, or you're just lying. Former New Hanover County Commissioner Woody White commented, actually, he's the one that brought this to my attention on his X feed last night, and he quoted the Senate Majority Leader in Indiana saying, "We aren't here to be the neutral arbiters of decline." That was the part that he pulled out. That's a great quote. I'm glad that former Commissioner White pointed this out. He writes, "What a perfect way to say what needs to be said. Thank you, Senator Chris Garton, for setting an example. I'm with you 100%. Think about that quote. We aren't here to be neutral arbiters of decline. That's a really, really powerful quote. That is a really, really strong quote from, on all accounts, a very powerful person in Indiana politics. And the GOP caved. Plain and simple. They caved to the mob. They caved to the media and would not move forward with this redistricting. It's not illegal. It's not. You might not like that it's happening. You might think it's wrong that it's happening, but it's not illegal. It is absolutely the same way it is in North Carolina, the discretion of the Indiana General Assembly, the Indiana legislature, to draw maps. They have the ability to do so. There would have been legal challenges, sure, but they would have failed the same way that they're failing here in North Carolina. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean it's illegal. Just because you disagree with something doesn't make it illegal to do. Democrats tried this all the time. You've heard me say a million times, sue till blue. Republicans do things you don't like, sue them. Keep suing them. Get it in front of a friendly judge. Sue till blue. Can't win at the ballot box? Sue. Don't like policies being enacted by the Republicans? Sue. That's their game plan. It's not to win. It's not to convince voters in states like Indiana or in North Carolina that the Democrat Party has the best ideas to move the state forward. It's not that the Democrat Party is going to lead the state into great success. That's never the approach, because it's not true, first of all. And secondly, just sue. Don't like what's going on? The hell with it. Sue them. That's sue till blue. That's the policy. That's the platform. That's the approach. And so it's very, very frustrating to watch those Republicans, of which there are 40 in the Indiana Senate, voting against this, crossing the aisle with their Democrat counterparts and nuking these maps after they had already passed the House. President Trump commenting on Truth Social, talking about the Indiana House Speaker, Rod Bray, who voiced his opposition to the bill. He is putting every ounce of his limited strength into asking his soon-to-be very vulnerable friends to vote with him. By doing so, he is putting the majority of the House of Representatives, Washington, D.C. at risk, and at the same time putting anybody in Indiana who votes against his redistricting likewise at risk. The president noted, Anybody that votes against redistricting and the success of the Republican Party in D.C. will be, I'm sure, met with a MAGA primary in the spring. Rod Bray and his friends won't be in politics for long, and I will do everything within my power to make sure they will not hurt the Republican Party and our country again. Now, that was in comments to the House Speaker in the state of Indiana. Like North Carolina, you've got a House and a Senate. The Republican governor of Indiana, Mike Braum, who supported the redistricting, said, quote, "This is very disappointing," referring to the result, adding that he will be, quote, "working with the president to challenge these people who do not represent the best interests of the Hoosiers in Illinois." Or Indiana, excuse me. Indiana Hoosiers, not Illinois. Wrong state. So, governor was in favor of it. The leader of the Senate, obviously, based on his commentary, seemed like he was pretty strongly in favor of it as well. And I am pretty confident. I will not sit here this morning and tell you that I'm an expert in Indiana politics. I'm not. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be one. But if I had to guess, having looked at some of the commentary online over the last few days when it looked like this was coming forward, I would guess that the pressure campaign mounted by the left is the reason that the final vote was 19 in favor, 31 against, with 21 Republicans voting with Democrats to blow up this redistricting effort, which would have given the GOP nine seats, House seats, presumably 9 House seats in the state compared to what it is right now. Like, I think it's 7-2 right now. And so I caught this interesting graph over at Axios this morning, and it's kind of showing the breakdown of what they are calling the redistricting war that's going on right now. And they show that, the state of California is likely to add somewhere between 3 and 5 additional Democrat seats. The state of Texas likely to add about an additional 3 to 5 Republican seats. Ohio, not immediately clear what's going on there. An additional Republican seat likely in the state of Missouri. An additional Republican seat in the state of North Carolina. We obviously watch that redistricting battle take place here in the state. So that's some good news. And 1 extra Democrat seat likely coming from the state of Utah. Then there are some other states where this could happen as well. The states that Republicans could gain a couple of more seats would be Florida, Alabama, Kansas, and Louisiana. Potential pickups there for Republicans. On the flip side, Democrats could gain additional seats in Virginia, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Maryland. So pretty much an even split there. And then places unlikely to do it. Indiana, which could have added 2 seats yesterday, chose not to, so that's off the table. Nebraska has already bucked the redistricting trend, so they're not going to likely add any. And then the state of New York, which could have added presumably 1 more Democrat member of Congress, they are unlikely to do that there. And so that is the kind of current layout, current setup on redistricting here in the United States as we head into the 2026 midterm elections. If you want to have a philosophical discussion about redistricting, I'm not doing that this morning. I'm not getting into this. I have made this point, tried to make this point as concisely as possible over the last couple of months. And speaking for myself, and I feel confident saying many of you listening this morning, we are done trying to be the quote-unquote nice guys in the room. We are done pandering to the left. We are done rising above. When they go low, we go high. I've heard enough of it. I'm sorry, I'm just not interested anymore. They go low, we go high means that Republicans get nothing of what they want. Democrats, anytime that they are in power, change the rules of the game, flip the chessboard upside down, and we're left there picking up the pieces going, we're going to be the party that plays by the rules. We're going to be the party that does this. We're going to be the party that does that. I'm just sick of it. I'm over it. I want to win. If the game is fair both sides were willing to play by it, I'd have a very different approach. But ladies and gentlemen, I will contend to you this morning as I've done in the past. Anytime Democrats have even an ounce of power, what do? They change the rules of the game. They rig the rules of the game in favor of themselves. And so standing on what I will describe as this fictitious moral high ground to claim that, oh, we're the ones that are going to hold the norms, it doesn't work. Take any sport, NFL, college football, basketball, baseball, hockey. The only reason any of those things work is because both teams on the field, on the ice, on the baseball diamond, they're playing by the same set of rules. 3 strikes is an out in baseball. 4 balls is a walk. For every batter, for every team, all of the time. The rule doesn't change. It's not fluid. Oh, well, the Yankees are playing, so 3 balls actually means you get to walk. No, it's 4. That's how it is with every team, every single game, the entire season. In the NFL, college, 10 yards is a first down. Not 5, not 7, not 9, 10. Consistently, every single game. All the time, for decades. That's how it's played. Those rules don't change. And when they do change, they are changed evenly and fairly for each team to compete. One team, one side doesn't get the benefits of new rules while the other's playing a game from 60 years ago. That's the only reason that any sort of professional or collegiate sports work. There are consistent rules that both sides abide by. We do not have that in politics. We don't. Democrats move the goalposts. They change the rules of the game to benefit themselves. And in the new age of what, I'll describe as the kind of the new age of the GOP, the new age of the Republican Party, people like myself are sick and tired of it. I'm sick of playing by the standard rules of 60 years ago while I get railroaded by Democrats when they get power. I'm done with that. I'm not interested in that. I'm not saying ignore the law. I'm not saying give up your morals. I'm not saying any of that. Politics is a sport. It's a nasty one. I'll admit. You've got to play to win. And when the other side changes the rules of the game consistently, and you're sitting over here like choir boys in the corner saying, well, we're just going to keep playing by the old rules. We don't want to ruffle any feathers. We don't want to shake the boat at all. I say to hell with that. I don't want to do it anymore. Democrats want to change the rules. Okay, fine. We'll play by the same game rules that you do. And I understand what that leads to. I'm not oblivious to the fact. I know that is a slippery slope. It's a dangerous precedent. I get it. I'm not oblivious to that fact. But at the same time, I'll say, what's the alternative? Give all of it up? Give Democrats full and exclusive control forever? Because every single time they'll just change the rules to benefit them? Is that the alternative? You can die on your ivory tower as Democrats take over and destroy everything. I'm not interested in that either. Show me an alternative that makes sense. Give me what the counter to this is. I've never heard it described. I've never heard it explained, and I'm frustrated with it. I think a lot of you are frustrated with it as well. And it's why so many folks on the right really do appreciate President Trump. Appreciate his willingness to call this nonsense out. Appreciate his willingness to not capitulate the second that the heat begins to turn up just a little bit. I know I do. And I think it's why he continues to be such a strong force within the Republican Party. Very disappointing to read some of these details and cover some of this out of the state of Indiana. They had an opportunity. Again, if Democrats were in charge in Indiana, I'm very confident. I feel very confident this morning telling you that they would do exactly what the Republicans failed to do yesterday. They would have passed new maps to give themselves as many seats as possible. Same thing here in North Carolina. If it wasn't Republicans leading the North Carolina General Assembly and it were Democrats, we would be having the exact same conversation on the other side. We'd be talking about how Democrats are drawing additional congressional seats so that they can stop the president's agenda in the midterms. I can guarantee you that would be happening. Guarantee it. So what is the alternative to that? It's to fight fire with fire. Not a great solution, sure. But I have yet to hear what the alternative is. Smoking your cigar and reading your historical political papers is not going to move the ball forward. I'm sorry, it's just not. Having your 7,000 word political discussion running in the National Review I like the National Review, but I mean, they're just, some 7,000 word article in the National Review describing how this is terrible for the Republicans. It's just, it doesn't carry any water with me. I don't care. I just don't. I'm over it. I don't care. Am I part of the problem? I guess. Point the finger at me. I'm part of the problem, I guess, then. I want to win. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and allow the other side to railroad me every time they have the opportunity and sit here and just allow it to happen. And what, just hope that it doesn't? Really? That's what we're relegated to? I hope when Democrats get control, which they will again at some point, could be as soon as November of next year, we're just going to hope that if Democrats get control again, that they're going to be nice. No, they'll impeach the president. At least start those proceedings. You can guarantee that. Over what? Who the hell knows? They'll make something up. They'll rig the system in their favor. You can guarantee that's what's going to happen. I'm not interested in that. That's not a fair game from my vantage point. And so very, very disappointing to see the Indiana GOP folding like a cheap suit yesterday when they had the opportunity to deliver a couple of more seats for Republicans and failed to do so. And so will this decide the control of the United States House in 2026? It could. Margins are probably going to be really tight. It could be as little as 1, 2, 3, 4 seats one way or the other. It's going to be a really, really tight midterm election for Republicans. It's going to be really hard to hang on to those seats, regardless, whether it was Trump or any other Republican. Midterm elections are always hard for the party in charge, always have been. And so could those 2 seats kind of springboard the Republicans and get them over the finish line? Possibly. But they're not. I mean, the legislation is dead. And I'm at this point, I don't believe that there would be any additional time to redraw any of those maps, to do anything with those that would have impact, have effect before the midterm elections. I just at that point just don't see it happening. The timetable, the time frame is just too short. Some additional commentary coming in on this as well. This is Stephen Miller's comments on the situation saying, quote, "The Democrat Party is engaged in a vast scheme to displace and disfranchise GOP voters and their families through mass voter importation. Yet Republican lawmakers eagerly facilitate the disinheritment of their own children." That's Stephen Miller's commentary on it. We also heard from the Vice President of the United States in J.D. Vance, promoting some commentary from Donald Trump Jr., who originally said, "If Indiana Republicans side with these never-Trumpers to do the dirty work of Democrats, I'll be spending a lot of time in Indiana next year campaigning against every single one of them." With Vice President J.D. Vance jumping in and saying Rod Bray, the Senate leader in Indiana, has consistently told us that he wouldn't fight redistricting while simultaneously whipping his members against it. The level of dishonesty cannot be rewarded, and the Indiana GOP needs to choose a side. Agree with the commentary there from J.D. Vance. It's not us versus us. It's us versus them. And so you've got to be willing to pick your side. Does that mean that everything that the GOP does is perfect and great and I agree with? No, it does not. It absolutely does not. But if you're one of these grassroots people in North Carolina or anywhere around the country that believes that not voting for Republicans is a sustainable strategy and you're going to give the middle finger to the GOP by supporting Democrats, then you're choosing the other side. And that's fine. That's your prerogative to do so. If you want to vote for former Democrat Governor Roy Cooper as a Republican in the Senate race, you're allowed to do that. I don't think at that point, though, I'd call you a conservative, a Republican. I'm not going to call you part of the grassroots or any other stupid-ass name you want to give yourself. No, you're a Democrat. Not interested in that. I want to win. And so, as J.D. Vance says, the GOP needs to choose a side. I agree. So that's the latest out of Indiana. We'll, again, looking at this list from Axios, a couple of the other states where this could happen: Florida, Virginia, Wisconsin, Alabama, Illinois, Kansas, Louisiana, and Maryland. We'll see how some of that shakes out. It's going to have to happen, obviously, pretty quickly with elections rolling around next year. We'll keep an eye on all those details. We'll bring it to you right here on the Nick Craig Show. The only way that this show is possible is thanks to our great supporters, those that support over at patreon.com/Nick Craig, and Melissa Gott and her team at the Law Group. And I want to let you know on this Friday morning that when legal challenges arise, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, trust the Law Group in Wilmington. For now more than 22 years, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across eastern North Carolina. I had the pleasure of working with Melissa and her team 5 years ago. Crazy to say. Over 5 years ago, when I went through the process of purchasing my home, they had my back every step of the way. Their dedicated team ensured that all of my questions were answered and any issues that did arise were resolved as quickly as possible. So for any legal challenges, contact the Law Group. They're located in downtown Wilmington and just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. Give them a call, 910-251-6088, or their website, lawgroupnc.com. The Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate Melissa and her team's continued support here of the Nick Craig Show. All right, so we are rounding out the program this morning. The busy week here across the state of North Carolina. Things are going to slow down pretty rapidly and dramatically over the next couple of weeks as we get closer to Christmas, which is less than 2 weeks away at this point. The news cycle will go from a pretty steady stream to probably nothing more than a drip. So we'll keep an eye on everything throughout this weekend and bring it all to you coming up Monday morning right here on the Nick Craig Show. Don't forget that the program streams live weekday mornings, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and is available on demand on your own time via the Nick Craig Show podcast. Have a phenomenal weekend. We're back here Monday morning on the Nick Craig Show.